Hello and welcome back to the Big Ten Show. We are here with another little list, if you will. However, it's the top 5 spring football storylines for the Big Ten. We are going to run through a little bit of our storylines and give you some reasons why we think, these are the top and why they're important going into next season. So, first things first, I did want to announce a challenge that we are putting together for the Big Ten Show community. We are doing a March Madness bracket challenge. I will be putting the link in the description. Feel free to join. We are, going to be giving out a prize. Sonny, do you want to go over what that is?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about the surprise. It's a game that I've been playing for a few years now. It's called Draft Day Sports College Basketball 2024. Now, let me do the ad read and I'll tell you about it in my own experience. Take control and shape the destiny of your favorite college basketball team in Draft Day Sports College Basketball 2024. Experience the deepest and most realistic franchise mode where you build your dynasty through strategic recruiting and coaching decisions. With fully customizable features, the game puts you in the driver's seat. Are you ready to make history? So this is actually a really exciting game, especially now that we're kind of in the tournament season. Essentially, you get to take control of your own basketball program. You can start off with, a program like Illinois, like I would, or you can go for start off like at the bottom rung, a program like Morehead State. You do all the recruiting, you can get job offers. It's actually a really fun game, especially if you got more of an analytical mind. One of the more fun simulations. So I'm really happy that Gary from Wolverine Studios, who I actually had known for a while, has offered this game up to the winner of the bracket challenge. So if you know your basketball, definitely sign up in the link. And if you do end up winning, we'll send you a copy of the game for absolutely free.
Yeah. And what is the value? You said 30?
I think so off the top of my head.
$30. I think you said 30. So yeah. So that'll be a prize. And then potentially I might add an additional on top of that, maybe a cash prize, a little small cash prize, stuff like that. So I'll probably add that on top of it too. So we are going to do that. Link in the description, like I said before. So let's go ahead and we'll start by running through the storylines here. So I will let you go ahead and kick it off with your number 5, Sonny.
All right. The first thing I think I'm going to be paying close.
Yeah, these are no particular order, actually.
Yeah.
Just to put that out there. Go ahead.
Right. The first thing I have is all the new head coaches in the Big Ten. There's going to be a lot. 5, I believe. I guess 6 if you count Braun. Braun's it's kind of his first full year, and he was kind of hired very late into the season, before the season started last year. But just seeing, the Jed Fishes, the Signettis, I mean, even Lincoln Riley's a new coach in the Big Ten, to see how they kind of, the adjustments that they're going to need to make, because obviously now the Big Ten looks a lot different than what we're used to, particularly when we talk about football. So, Michigan State bringing in Jonathan Smith, a lot of people think that program is going to take longer to rebuild than, Michigan State fans may want to think, but I'm really curious to kind of catch up on their spring game and see how things are going over there. So for me, one of the biggest storylines is all the new coaches we have in charge of programs in the Big Ten.
That one's very similar to one of mine, so I'll go ahead and piggyback off of that. What adjustments will Pac-12 teams make stylistically, if any? And I think it's, a lot of the schemes are going to be very vanilla, but I do think we will be able to see some of these, we're going to see some of the stylistic changes if there is any. And I'm just curious to see the approach. It's going to be one of those things where these teams are going to want to be able to compete in year one in the Big Ten. So do they stick to what they know, or do they try to balance it out a little bit? And which coaches, do coaches with Big Ten experience balance it out a little different than the others? So I think that'll be a very interesting storyline to piggyback on yours with the coaches, because very, 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 very close. And I'm excited for that, because that has been the question this whole time for me is what adjustments will be made and how many, if any. So,
well, I mean, we've been talking about that with almost every guest that we've had in our program overviews. For every incoming Pac-12 correspondent that we got, we'd be like, hey, what adjustments do you think need to be made? What adjustments do you think the Big Ten needs to make? So it won't tell us for a matter of fact, but it'll kind of give us an idea of what these new coaches are doing. And I agree, it's something I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and get into your next one.
This is kind of on topic, but this was my number two. It's just Lincoln Riley and fixing that USC defense. Lincoln Riley, we all know that he can produce quarterbacks and he can produce top-notch offenses, but his style of play would not have worked in the Big Ten as we know it as a conference. And we're not the only ones who know it. Lincoln Riley knew it, and that's why he let go of his defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch, who I believe is now in Wisconsin. And he hired, the guy from right across the street at UCLA. He knows that the USC Trojans are going to have to play a much more physical style of football, especially in the Big Ten. And he recognized that right away. And USC being arguably the most premium brand joining the Big Ten this offseason, I'm really looking forward to seeing how their first year goes in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that there's some similarities here, but yeah, these are the probably. I mean, of course, Lincoln Riley's defense is part of the storylines. Same thing, yeah. Alex Grinch is out. They bring in D'Anton Lynn. D'Anton Lynn runs a 3-4, which is similar to the base defense that Alex Grinch runs. The linebackers are very important in the way he runs because those are going to be the gap fills. But last year they missed 24 tackles in the Pac-12 championship game. Their secondary was abysmal, and it was one of those things schematically. It just wasn't working because of the way he utilizes his defense. The middle of the field tends to be open, and in the Pac-12 where they pass the ball at the rate they do, that's going to be an issue. They force turnovers, but sometimes at the detriment of the team's fundamentals. It was one of those it was almost like they're trying to be like old Eric Shenander Nebraska defense, where he's always been not break, right? Like, we can give up all the yards in the world as long as we don't let them score or force a turnover. It's a very aggressive style, but when you don't have the right scheme in place and you don't have the right people in place to run it, it can be bad. And that's what we saw last year. So D'Anton Lynn, I want to see how he's going to change up that 3-4 to kind of mitigate those issues. So it'll be interesting to see how he changes, a similar style. They're both 3-4s and just kind of makes the adjustments there. So, all right, let's go ahead and look at your next one.
Next up, we talked about all the incoming new head coaches into the Big Ten, but I believe almost half the teams are going to have new starting quarterbacks next year.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about potential contenders in Ohio State, Oregon, Wisconsin. All these teams are going to have new quarterbacks there. And, the Big Ten has never necessarily been known as the cradle of quarterbacks, but the talent level every year seems to be getting incrementally higher. In particular, now that we've brought Lincoln Riley and Dan Lanning into tow, you think that the ceiling for that position is going to continue to get higher in the Big Ten. And, again, it kind of incorporates to what our first topic was. Like, having good quarterbacks tends to mean that you raise the offensive profile of not only your team, but then if a bunch of teams in the Big Ten Conference are raising their offensive profile, well, that tells you the conference offensive profile is rising a little bit too. So I'm really looking forward to seeing just the adjustments that are going to be made and the new faces that are going to be under center next year.
Yep. And I'll go ahead and give you my similar one, but I was a little bit more specific. I went with Michigan and Nebraska's quarterback rooms. I almost added Minnesota's in there, but that one is just we have to wait to the season to see if either one of those quarterbacks are good. So Michigan and Nebraska's are a little different because there is talent there, and there's in Michigan's room, there's Alex Orji, you have Jack Tuttle, got his 7th year, Jaden Denigo, and Jalen Davis. And so it's one of those things where it's like, are they going to go with Alex Orji, or is the, number 166 quarterback in the ESPN 300 going to be able to step in there and take over? So, Nebraska's quarterback room was terrible last year, to put it lightly, one of the worst in college football, if not the worst. And I think it was 17 interceptions, 16 fumbles or something like that from them, which is absurd. So now we got, Dylan Raiola in this class, and also flew under the radar, 4-star Daniel Kalen is also in this class, a Nebraska kid. And then the only other quarterback outside of the walk-ons is Heinrich Harburg outside of that. And so, the experience we have as a quarterback who wasn't very successful as a quarterback, is really good as a football player. He's a Taysom Hill style, in my opinion, just without the accuracy, without as good of accuracy. He doesn't have a deep ball. So it's really on Raiola's shoulders to get this done. He's going to win the job. He's going to get the job most likely out of camp. And it's a question mark. Regardless, at the end of the day, a 5-star is a 5-star, but it doesn't matter until you see it on the field. We look at 5 stars year after year, and multiple 5 stars don't pan out. So hopefully, the writing's on the wall of a successful quarterback room for Nebraska next year. So
I'm gonna actually piggyback on that one because I actually had Dylan Raiola also listed in my 5. I think there's going to be huge spotlight on him this particular year. We've heard from many Nebraska fans. We all know what that first half of the schedule looks like, and it's very reasonably easy compared to some of the other teams. And there's a lot of drama involving the decommitments from Raiola and him finally coming to play in Lincoln. Obviously, there's a lot of publicity. There's a lot of hubbub. We know about how awful that quarterback room was for Nebraska last year. And, you've mentioned a couple times, like there's some analytical data that suggests that Nebraska underperformed by 3 wins last year. And, I completely agree with you. The quarterback room had a lot to do with that.
yeah.
So if Dylan can come in and play, not necessarily lights out like a 5-star freshman, but if he can be a proper game manager who just makes the right play and he doesn't lose them games, he's at least capable of keeping them in games.
Yeah.
Then quite honestly, combined with that easy schedule that Nebraska has at the beginning part of the year, there's a huge potential for Nebraska to be the story of the Big Ten this season.
Yeah, and adding Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair to that wide receiver room was huge. All right, so I will go ahead and move into my next one then, if I can pull back in my notes back up because I was too busy conversing with you. I'm sorry.
You heard me talk about Nebraska, and you're just
I realized that was your next point after the fact, and I'm like, oh wait, I'm supposed to go now because I thought you were piggybacking on mine, but then I realized that's your whole next storyline. My next one is what is the offense in Ohio State going to look like under Chip Kelly? Chip Kelly has come out and says it will be a collaborative effort. He says it's not his offense, it's Ohio State's offense. He said he talked to Hartline, Tony Alford, Kenny Bailey in constructing the offense. But the thing is, yeah, it's all fine and well to say that. But typically when it comes to an offense, if you have multiple hats in the play calling or anything like that, then there tends to be a butting of heads. And so hopefully in this instance, Chip Kelly is going to try to come in and implement still some of his successful parts of his offense, but still try to run a system that's based on what they have. And then also just seeing how he's going to utilize the run versus the pass with this running back room that they have, because that is a weapon. So is it going to be a little more balanced offense? We'll see. I'm interested to see just kind of those specific details. And then of course, Will Howard's transition into the offense.
And I agree with that too. There's no team with higher expectations coming into this year than Ohio State. And, Chip Kelly kind of brings his own baggage in the sense where he was a head coach who's essentially accepted a demotion to become an offensive coordinator in a rival Big Ten school. But everything you've seen, every interview you've seen of Chip Kelly over the last couple of weeks, he's seemingly has a smile on his face every single time. He is noticeably happier. He doesn't have to deal with the headaches or the portion of being a head coach that you can clearly tell that he just no longer enjoyed doing. So, Ryan Day, we all know, is pretty much an offensive genius. And Chip Kelly comes in with his own reputation of being an offensive genius. So it's like, as long as they can kind of stay out of each other's way, we know the talent is there. There's a boatload of talent with Ohio State. And this year, more than any other year, their expectations are sky high. So it's going to be very interesting to watch what happens in Columbus.
Absolutely.
But
and what's your next one?
My next one, since we're talking about offensive coordinators anyway, Tim Lester being hired at Iowa. Begrudgingly, let's be honest. France really didn't want to move on from his son, but the administration kind of forced it upon them. We know Iowa. Iowa's going to play great, fantastic defense. They're going to limit their mistakes. They're going to play really good special teams, and they're going to not lose their games.
Yep.
Question has always been their offense, and their fan base has been just waiting forever for this change. The rest of us, they've kind of become a joke throughout all these years. The fact that they have just been so stubborn to not change.
Mm-hmm.
But now change was brought to them. And so it's going to be very interesting to see if Tim Lester is able to bring in his own style, his own, ways to play offense, or if it's just a hire in name only and Kirk Ferentz still kind of instills his more boring, mistake-free, let's just have the other facets of the football team win games.
Yeah. And for full transparency, when we discussed this topic, you sent me an article. I did not open that article, and I just came up with basically the same 5 storylines as you. But Tim Lester's offense is my last one. And I think these are just like, kind of like obvious.
Yeah, I think so.
Because these are the teams that really we want to see how they're going to do, because these are the teams kind of at the middle of the top, second, third tier that have a chance to bump up. And, Iowa was very close last year. Me and you have both talked about how we like the Tim Lester hire, and, he has Big Ten experience, quarterback coach at Purdue, and implementing his offense, without his quarterback being there to start is going to be a little different, and it's not going to give us too much of an answer until he gets in there. But it's just Iowa's so good defensively, and they're going to be well coached. They're going to be good defensively and special teams. They're not going to make mistakes. And so if this offense, similar to Nebraska's, if our quarterback room is average, then we'll be okay. If Iowa's offense is average, then they'll be fine. So Iowa has a chance to make a big jump with this small change, and I think they have a chance to move themselves, potentially into the playoff conversation in this coming year, now that it's expanding beyond belief. So, Tim Lester for me there. Was that your 5, or do you have one more?
I have one more. Want me to go?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. The last one I had is just Chiron Moore. For me, I think he deserved his own category, just with all, the drama that, we've had. He was considered a safe hire once Jim Harbaugh left to the Chargers. But while they've kind of retained most of the roster that they wanted to keep, you've seen a couple of defections on the coaching staff. And yeah, he won some very important games last year for Michigan. Now he's in charge. Now there's no one else. There's no Coach Harbaugh, helping him game plan from Sundays to Fridays. This is all under his watch now. And so with Michigan being the national champion, of course, there's going to be a extra bright spotlight to them. It's going to be very interesting from an outsider's perspective, just to see what kind of leash that the Wolverine fans are going to have for him. Well, are they going to be a little patient with the first year? Because obviously, they are reloading in a little bit. Last year's national championship team had a lot of seniors on their team playing, and that's kind of a reason of why they were so dominant. This year's not so much. You already talked about the change at the quarterback position, and that's just one of many positions that's going to kind of be turned over. So this year, I think one of the big storylines is just going to be how Moore adjusts to basically becoming the guy at Michigan.
Yep. And yeah, I think, we the ones we had differently, because I've given my 5 mine were Chip Kelly. Yours was Chiron Moore. To piggyback off of that, yeah, it's, we had Chiron Moore a little lower on our power rankings, just kind of as a wait and see, and so we'll see what comes of this, if he makes the right call on the quarterback room, and with all of the departures, it's not like he's going to have to repeat what they did last year, but he is going to be expected to withhold a standard there. So, really excited to see that. And, I think we can all probably agree these top five storylines. Most Big Ten fans would probably agree that these are the things that we want to look out for. But very exciting stuff. I'm glad spring ball is coming up because we are getting out of that little lull where there's nothing going on outside of playoff expansions to talk about and money distribution, which is the boring stuff. So
It's been fun doing these program overviews and learning about all the different programs in the conference. Where I think we're about halfway through the conference, and we'll definitely have the rest done before next season. But it is nice to actually talk about football and what's going on. The actual programs themselves.
Yep.
And so we just got to be a little bit more patient.
Yep. A lot more football content coming up as we get more news and stories coming in. So, and the program overviews will continue to come. Again, if you like what we're doing here, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you, everybody who's supported thus far on the Big Ten Show. We're trying to build a community here. We got plans in the future to kind of involve everybody, stuff like that. And, I will throw a $40 cash prize at the winner of the March Madness bracket too. Just add a little extra incentive there. But I will put that in the description for y'all. So that'll do it for us here. Join us on the next episode of the Big Ten Show, and we will see y'all there. Peace.